One of the hottest topics in Formula One remains Daniel Ricciardo, as the Aussie had to settle for the reserve driver role in Red Bull when it was obvious that he wouldn't race in a team that doesn't have the capacity to fight at the top. However, that might be the reality in 2024 after a cryptic message was sent by the Honeybadger and after Steiner reignited the talk about Ricciardo being part of his team in 2024, after he ignored their calls last year. But could Ricciardo eye a return with Red Bull, the team that has had so much drama going on between its two drivers ever since Brazil's 2022 GP? Join us as we go through the saga of Ricciardo and see where the Honeybadger finds his home in the following season. Daniel Ricciardo has had the worst 2 seasons of his career with McLaren, especially in 2022, and from what we can see from the Woking-based squad, it wasn't entirely his fault that the car wasn't able to finish further up the grid. However, the role that he is currently playing in Red Bull is definitely not something that he would desire to do in the following years as well. And the only reason he signed the contract is because he sniffed an opportunity about a potential replacement of Sergio Perez, a driver that started to show his teeth to Verstappen and Horner in Brazil 2022 and hasn't stopped ever since. But before we continue with Perez and the ongoing saga between him and the team, as well as how this may benefit Ricciardo in the long term, make sure to like our video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification post. After Perez wasn't respected enough and was brutally humiliated by his teammate in Brazil, he decided that 2 years as a fiddlestick was enough for a driver of his caliber. He wasn't competitive for wins as much as Verstappen in 2021 and 2022, but now in 2023, he's shown that we can see much more from him in terms of competitiveness and aggressiveness, as was shown the best in Jeddah. Verstappen had 25 laps to catch up to his teammate, and Perez was able to hold his ground and keep a 5-second advantage ahead of the Dutchman, to which the 2-time world champion replied by stealing the fastest lap at the end of the race. It was the most awkward win celebration in Red Bull, and even though Perez tried to squash any potential beef between him and the team, saying that he and Joss have the utmost respect for each other, the awkwardness in the cooldown room between Perez and Verstappen was more than evident. Why are we talking about these things when the video is about Ricciardo having a seat in 2024? Well, situations like this can, and definitely will, drive Perez off the team. If there is one thing that we've learned about Red Bull in the previous seasons, it's that Verstappen should never be challenged by a teammate. Now that the RB19 has proven to be the fastest car on the grid without any challenge from the other teams, the only one that can steal the championship from Verstappen is a guy who sits next to him in the garage. And Perez is definitely the best teammate that Verstappen has had in his racing career. So with all of the experience of the Mexican and the fact that he wasn't respected as much as he should have been in 2022 after everything he did in 2021 for his teammate, it goes on to show that he is out for blood. Perez has announced multiple times that he is very happy with the RB19, and for the first time since he's joined the team, the Austrian squad is no longer a one-car team, and both of the cars are able to fight for the championship. To top that off, he said that the championship fight from his side is definitely on. So it seems like he doesn't understand the fact that if he challenges Verstappen at any given point in 2023 and goes on to provide more challenges than Verstappen should endure from his side, he would leave the team on a quick note. But given the fact that he wasn't able to climb the grid in Australia as easily as Verstappen did in Jeddah, it means that Perez may not have the qualities and the killer instinct as his teammate in order to win the championships. On the other hand, he's been making more mistakes, such as spinning off and beaching himself in the gravel, and we know that these are things that are definitely the difference between a championship-winning season and a mediocre season. Therefore, even though Perez has all the stamina and enthusiasm to win a championship with Red Bull, now that this is the best car he could possibly drive on the grid, we don't see him challenging Verstappen at any given point, and his seat is practically safe. So, with this in mind, what is next for the Honeybadger? The Aussie could return to the grid in 2024 after a cryptic message was sent by him in an interview with David Croft from Sky F1. And when he was complimented about looking very well in those colours, Croft went on to add that he and the fans would love to see him in a racing suit rather than sitting on the pit wall. To this, Ricciardo replied, "I look good in these colours though, right? Did I look a bit lonely? It's alright, I can do it for a year. It's alright, it's not forever." Now this is definitely the type of news that you want to hear from the Honeybadger, as we do not know many people who hate him and who wouldn't want to have him racing for any team in 2024. But with the situation as it is in Red Bull, and with Ferrari and Mercedes, the next two competitive teams, having their driver lineups locked up until the beginning of the 2025 season, what is next for Ricciardo? HAAS is one team that has reignited the talk about the Aussie joining them in 2024, and even though we just saw Hulkenberg score 6 points for the team in a Hail Mary race in Australia, that is far from enough for him to keep the spot with the American squad. If there is one thing that we've learned about HAAS, it's that they do not have a lot of trust in their drivers, as we've seen the starting lineup change a lot in the recent seasons. What goes heavily in Ricciardo's favour is that HAAS, for some reason, loves hiring veterans, and the 2021 rookie lineup from Schumacher and Mazepin didn't even make it for 3 full seasons. Mazepin was sacked due to the Russian-Ukraine war, and Schumacher just wasn't able to show the team that he was capable of winning solid points for the team, even though he had 2 solid finishes at P8 and P6 in Silverstone and Austria respectively. Therefore, if Hulkenberg and Magnussen fail to perform in 2023, now that HAAS has shown the car can definitely score a solid amount of points if it's driven by the right driver, Ricciardo could see himself suiting up in the white-red colours, and being led by Günther Steiner. The charismatic team principal spoke about this matter during the Australian GP weekend, leaving the door open for the 8-time GP winner, as he went on to add, "Everybody is wanting to speak with Danny after a year off. Maybe he knows again what he wants to do, and he will be interesting for everybody in F1. It's a little bit early to speak about a driver change already for next year, so let's see how we are doing with these drivers. For sure, at some point, maybe I'll speak with him, but I cannot promise anything. Because if our 2 guys do a good job, I think that's where I stand with it. But at the moment, I have a new driver this year that has done only 2 races, so I need to give him a little bit of a chance." HAAS, as we mentioned earlier, is not known for giving too much space and comfort to its drivers to prove what they are made of, and given the fact that Magnussen didn't start the season as a team would have hoped for, there is a high possibility the team could look into another direction if given the chance. Ricciardo is definitely the type of driver to lead the team in the right direction, and the experience he could bring to the team would be of immense importance. After all, he won 8 races in his career, and if he chooses HAAS as his next destination, he could be the #1 driver in his own team for the first time in a couple of years. That would be exactly what he needs after the 2 devastating seasons that Ricciardo had with McLaren, something that many experts believe has taken a huge toll on his confidence and his ability to deliver a car in the top 5 finishing places. With this in mind, what do you think about Ricciardo's chances of landing a starting spot in 2024? Do you think that HAAS is a better and more legitimate option than Red Bull? Or do you think that the Austrian team would be the perfect fit for him, as he wouldn't mind obliging to team orders and playing the perfect wingman role for Verstappen, given that his career is currently at its sunset? Let us know in the comments below, and after you do that, make sure to watch our next video that talks about the chaotic end of the Australian GP.